I have cataloged impossible things for 3 decades. Creatures that eat memories. Doors that open to centuries past. Songs that kill. But the most dangerous thing I have ever documented is not a monster, not a spell, not a god. It is a city. The first time I saw Baldur's Gate, I was 17 years old, and I had never traveled beyond the village where I was born. My father was a cooper. He made barrels. I grew up surrounded by the smell of oak and iron, and the quiet certainty that nothing important would ever happen to me. Then I saw the walls. They rise from the northern bank of the Sionthar River, like a cliff face, carved by something that resents the sky. Gray stone, battlements that have never been breached. And beyond them, smoke. Hundreds of chimneys coughing into a sky that never quite clears, as if even the heavens have learned not to look too closely at what happens inside. A merchant I met on the coastway told me something I have never forgotten. The city doesn't have walls to keep things out. It has walls to keep things in. The name itself is a lie, or at best, a polite fiction. Baldur, the explorer who sailed west and returned with a fortune, did not build the city. He built the wall. The city grew around it like mold on bread, like a fever that the body learns to live with. Baldur's Gate was never a gate. It was a wound, and wounds attract predators. I have studied the history of this place for years, and I have reached a conclusion that most chroniclers are too polite to write. Baldur's Gate is not governed. It is managed. 4 Grand Dukes sit in the High Hall, issuing decrees that nobody follows. The real power lives underground, in the guild, in the shadows, in the spaces between the law. The Flaming Fist keeps order in the streets, but order is not justice, and the fist answers to whoever pays. 9 Fingers Keened does not appear in any official record. The guild does not exist in any charter. And yet nothing happens in Baldur's Gate without their consent. That is not corruption. That is architecture, but the guild is not what makes Baldur's Gate dangerous. The Flaming Fist is not what makes it dangerous. The Grand Dukes are not what makes them dangerous. What makes it dangerous is something older than all of them. Something that has been there since before the first stone was laid. Something that chose this city deliberately and has never let go. The Lord of Murder did not simply visit Baldur's Gate. He walked its streets in mortal flesh. He fathered children, dozens of them, perhaps hundreds, seeding the city with his blood. The Bhaal spawn. And when Bhaal died during the time of troubles, his essence did not dissolve. It waited. Saravok was the first to answer, a pole spawn who tried to become the new god of murder by engineering a war between Baldur's Gate and Amen. He nearly succeeded. The Iron Crisis, the poisoning of the iron mines, the deaths of thousands, all of it was a single man's gambit to ascend. The city remembers. The city always remembers. I spoke to a retired Flaming Fist officer in the Elfsong Tavern. She had been stationed in the lower city during the Paulspawn crisis. She told me things that are not in the official records. There was a temple, she said, under the city, under everything. A place where the walls wept blood and the floor was made of skulls. Paul's temple. They sealed it after Saravok fell. But sealing a god's house doesn't mean he's not home. She paused for a long time. Then she said something that still keeps me awake. I still dream about it. The blood, the silence, the way the air felt wrong. And I know I'm not the only one. A century passed. The Paulspawn crisis became history, then legend. Then something parents told their children to keep them out of the lower city after dark. But Baal does not forget. He does not forgive. And he does not stop. In the year 1492, centuries after Saravak fell, centuries after the temple was sealed, centuries after the city convinced itself it was safe, the dark urge came to Baldur's Gate. I will not describe everything. Some horrors deserve their own chronicles. But I will say this. The dark urge was not a cultist who worshipped Baal. The dark urge was Baal, the Lord of Murder's own blood, his own essence, his own hunger, walking through the city gates in mortal form, carrying a past so dark that even the memory of it had to be erased for the vessel to function. And that vessel, that broken, bloody, impossibly dangerous creature, walked the streets of Baldur's Gate for months before anyone understood what was happening. Some of those months, the urge resisted. Some of them, it didn't. The city has the scars to prove it. But Baal was not the only god who noticed Baldur's Gate. The dead three, Baal, Bain, Miracle, chose the city as the stage for their grand design. The Absolute. A mind flayer elder brain, corrupted and enslaved, broadcasting a false faith across the Sword Coast. An army of cultists. A conspiracy that reached from the sewers of the lower city to the highest spires of the upper city. And at the center of it all, Baldur's Gate. Always Baldur's Gate. Why? I asked that question to every scholar who would speak to me. The answers varied, but the pattern was unmistakable. Baldur's Gate sits at the mouth of the Hionthar, controlling trade from the interior to the Sea of Swords. It is the richest city on the Sword Coast. It is the most densely populated. It is the most politically fractured. But those are just facts. The real answer is simpler and darker. Gods need cities because gods need people. And Baldur's Gate, crowded, desperate, ambitious, corrupt, has more people than anywhere else, living closer together, with more to lose and more to gain. It is a crucible. And crucibles attract gods who want to test what breaks. And yet Baldur's Gate survives. It survived the Pulspawn crisis. It survived the Absolute. It survived the Iron Crisis, the Guild Wars, the Plague Years, the Fires, the Floods, the endless grinding weight of its own corruption. It survives because it is too stubborn to die, too rich to fail, too crowded to fall. The woman at the Elf Song Tavern told me one more thing before I left. Baldur's Gate is not a city, she said. It's a bet. Every person who lives here is betting that they can survive one more day. And somehow, most of them do. I am still cataloging the impossible. Creatures, doors, songs. I have added Baldur's Gate to the archive. Not as a city, but as a living entity. A place that consumes and creates in equal measure. A wound that refuses to heal because healing would mean changing. And Baldur's Gate has never changed. If you ever walk through its gates, if you ever smell the smoke and the river and the fear, remember that the stones beneath your feet have seen gods die. And none of those gods were the last to fall. This account has been sealed within the Impossible Archive.
The Impossible Archive is open. New episodes every week. Subscribe before the next entry disappears.